The forests that once spanned the Nedotril coast have long been cleared to make way for industrial industry. Various fields and towns dot the region, and ships traveling the Padomaic Ocean sail along its shores. The populace is industrious but inwardly focused, and though their goods are transported far and wide, outside influences have had little impact on them. The hamlet called Seitur and the small port of Enarmordain are located along the coast, and the latter offers a ferry service to the island and town of Gorne. Hello everyone, my name is Alec, and today we are going to explore the island of Gorne. I was always drawn to remote-looking places on maps. Whether they were villages or islands, they seem like places of not only mystery and adventure, but also of quiet contemplation. For example, Dagonfell, a small Nordic village on the far north of Wardenfell, always felt so peaceful, as if truly standing at the end of the world. So when I discovered the existence of a small island of Gorne on Tamriel Rebuild's map, I immediately knew I had to explore it. And today this is exactly what we're gonna do. We will attempt to unravel everything interesting that this island has to offer without online guides or any prior knowledge. But before we begin, I should say that the island of Gorne isn't merely invented by writers of Tamriel Rebuild, as it's mentioned in the book series Poison Song, found in Morrowind. So the island does exist, and we know it's somewhere near Mournhold, in the Padomaic Ocean. Book even mentions a high waterfall and island's bewildering lush vegetation, as well as soft smells of flowers and trees untroubled by wind, with the foliage of purple-green, blue-green, ash-green, and white-green. It's pretty descriptive, and elsewhere there are mentions of oak trees, elms, and sunny groves of figs. In short, Gorne is described as a warm, green haven full of life. But that's in the book set in some distant past. It's time to see what the Gorne looks like today. The only way to reach the island of Gorne, besides taking a fairly long swim of course, is by using a boat service from Enarmordain, an equally remote small town located deep into the Nedotril region. And those capable of long-distance water walking or levitating could also approach the island this way, as long as it's not by swimming, since the waters are surprisingly filled with diseased creatures. I've got a nasty case of greenspore within seconds of going into the ocean, so be warned. Now, as for Gorne, what gives this island a special charm, in my opinion, is its location. As we said, island is set on the eastern side of Morrowind, in the Padomaic Ocean. Thus, it offers this really magnificent vast view over the eastern horizon. And across this horizon lies Akavir, the mysterious continent known only through legends. And from here, Akavir seems so dangerously close, with all of its snow demons, snake people, and other grotesque races. And yet, at the same time, ocean seems peaceful, almost dreamy as it gently glitters under the warm, soothing rays of the sun. So Gorne has this strong feeling of safety and coziness. It's detached from the rest of the world, offering a respite from all the troubles of daily politics and wars. It should also be mentioned that, besides Necrom, Gorne is the easternmost Dahmer settlement, and due to its remote location, I imagine it being fairly safe from the disaster of the Red Year at the beginning of the Fourth Era. As we all know, after the fall of Tribunal, Red Mountain erupted, destroying most of Morrowind, and those lands to the south that remained relatively unharmed were eventually invaded by, rightfully so, angry Argonians. I sincerely hope that the remoteness of Gorne made it uninteresting even to Argonians, but in any case, we are now in the year 427 of the Third Era, and Gorne belongs to the House Indoril. It's finally time to set our foot on the island and poke our nose around, so let's begin. Island can be divided into two main parts, the small town itself and the large surrounding wilderness. Honestly, it's kinda difficult to resist simply walking off into the wild as soon as we step on the island, as the whole area looks simply gorgeous. I'd even say that it reminds me of some large garden with stones that gleam under the sunlight, meadows filled with numerous flowers and dense groves. Island's landscape is, of course, dominated by the waterfall hidden between very tall rocks. Its gentle burble is probably heard across the entire island. The book series we previously mentioned, The Poison Song, and some in-game texts also suggest that wind rarely occurs on the island, and with all the flowers, lush vegetation, and dense trees, it's not hard to imagine Gorne's windless air as highly aromatic. What's interesting is that island has no fauna. On the entire island, I found a single cave rat, and there is actually an in-game explanation for this, but more on that later. First, let's see what secrets, rumors, and interesting details we can find in the town of Gorne. With the island being remote and secluded, you'd think that there aren't many things going on. However, talking to locals will reveal a couple of rumors, with the biggest and most recent one being about the disappearance of a local guard. And everyone seems to be really distressed about it because disappearances don't really happen here. Rumors will mention Ravos Sorvalet, a steward of Sandil Manor, and an official captain of the guard who was seen searching for the missing guard. So naturally, we will proceed to visit Sandil Manor, found on a hill overlooking the town, and talk to Ravos. Now, one thing about Ravos is that he will act all tough and ask us to not question the locals about anything. But according to locals, it's all an act and Ravos is really a big softie. He will, however, refuse to share any information with us, even with a high disposition. Luckily for us, there is someone else who knows more and is willing to talk. A local acrobat living next to Sandil Manor, Rallis Larmos. And he was the last person to see the missing guard alive. And Rallis will say the following. I was the last person to see him. North of town, just before the second bridge, there's a small hill. He was standing atop it, gazing westward. You can get a commanding view from that hill. On a clear day, you can see the rugged coastline of the mainland. Now, this in itself doesn't really provide that much, however, local trader Metalis Eves will provide another useful clue. According to her, the missing guard often traded pearls, and since no one in Gorne is pearl diving anymore, and my guess will be because surrounding waters are really dangerous, she concluded that guard himself must be a pearl diver in his free time. So now we know that missing guard was pearl diving and we have his last known location. So obviously we should look for him underwater. Now, if this was Skyrim, things would be much easier since all we could do is follow the quest marker. However, this being Morrowind, finding a single body in the ocean can be somewhat challenging. And as previously said, there are plenty of disease-carrying creatures swimming around, so I'd recommend a bunch of cure common disease scrolls or potions before getting wet. Body of a missing guard can be found straight west from the hill we used as a starting point. It's actually near Gormoro Grotto. This whole area is filled with pearls, and body of unfortunate guard is laying, as we said, close to the grotto. He will have 3 pearls and a guard key. We should take the key and return to the island. The nearby grotto can also be explored, but only if we are ready for some long diving for a few extra pearls. There will be a body of a drowned diver containing a probe and an exquisite ring worthy 240 septims. And further down the cave, kinda hidden, is a mysterious weapon, but turns out it's only a plain iron dagger, and therefore a huge waste of oxygen. Alright, with the body of a missing guard discovered, our task is done and we can report to Ravos and give him back the key. However, before we do that, we can also go to the guard tower and use the key to unlock the basement door. And why will we do that? Well, inside the storage area we will find a dead guard's journal. Same dead guard we just found underwater. And reading it will provide a clue or a hint to whatever happened to him. By doing this, we basically unlock the second part of the quest that will also provide a more satisfactory ending. So let's see, what does it say? At first, the guard goes on a rant about daily life on the island. By Ansivi, the flowers. I lived here 30 years, that should have been 3. A misfortune made even worse by Burial and her wretched flowers. In the town square she planted a gruesome orgy of purple, yellow and blue. Its odor like something dead and fermenting. Thanks to Madeline's snooty pet, Bosmer, the town is now a flower garden, its foul smell blanketing the island and lingering in the windless air. I need to get away soon. If I don't, I might ensure Burial never grows another blossom. And burial in question is a local wood elf, a self-described expert floriculturalist. She moved to Gorne from Akamora by a request from Madeline Rendays, a wealthy merchant obsessed with flowers. But let's go back to the journal. The last entry talks about a foreign traveling trader. Merchants who come here usually stay one day and one night, and then they leave. They remark how peaceful it is here, how restful and calm, how refreshing it must be to live without the pressure and strife of the mainland. They feel rejuvenate after spending the night. I want to scream at them, are you blind? Do you not see that the island is a floating bouquet of tranquil madness? Yesterday, another foreign hawker visited, dumb, loud, and barbaric. She was very easy to bargain with, selling potions for a fraction of their worth. So far, in my peril diving, I've kept to shallow waters, but with these potions, I'll crack open the deepest and oldest culops without difficulty. Tomorrow, I will dive for freedom. Very soon, I'll have enough drakes to quit this post and return to the mainland. Hopefully, a place with no flowers. Alright, so we found out more about town's dynamics and who planted all these flowers outside. But more importantly, it looks like the town's guard was sold some spoiled potions which caused him to drown. All we have to do again is ask around the town about the traveling trader. Interesting to note, a shipmaster, Relus Delano, will say that he knows where she went, but he will refuse to reveal the location because he wants more evidence. I guess that's fair enough. And the guy we need to talk to is Idav Terran, who also bought a potion from the mysterious stranger, which turned out to be diseased, thus giving him a swamp rot disease. Luckily, Idav was cured at the temple, but with this evidence, Relus will let us know that the trader we are looking for is called Julie, and she went to Seitur, a small hamlet north of here. The rest of the quest is fairly simple. We travel to Seitur, a really tiny fishing village with a single Indoril guard, find Julie in the trade house and confront her. She will attempt, of course, to bribe us with some of her potions, but given that they're all spoiled, it's really best to just end her little scheme once and for all. Julie will resist, but after a few hits she will surrender, and all we have to do then is arrest her and take her to the guard. And with that, Gorne's quest for the missing guard is truly completed. Of course, we should go to Ravus for reward. It's a really funny moment, I have to say. Ravus will be all sarcastic and give us an official title of Gorne Inspector and a hat for a reward. And the hat is, of course, Colovian Fur Helm. I even took a selfie with delighted Ravus. Truly a great moment to remember. What I'm trying to say, I guess, while on Gorne, don't expect some kind of reward for anything you do. Actually, don't expect any reward. People here really don't care at all, and I love it. In fact, Gorne seems to have only two proper quest lines. First one being the missing guard, which we just covered and which I consider to be Gorne's unofficial main quest. Second quest line also requires diving, surprise surprise, and it was fun to me because it revolves around this obscure piece of island's lore. And you guys know me, I love obscure pieces of lore. To start, we have to visit the town's only inn, the Emerald Haven Inn, and there we will find two Dunmer arguing. Silene Avel, a hunter, and Delamus Andari, a fisherman. You see, Silene and Delamus used to be friends, until Silene decided to also become a fisherman, which angered Delamus because he considered it his right alone to fish Gorne's waters. However, Silene cannot hunt because Island doesn't have any animals, and since he wants to remain on Gorne, his only option is to start fishing. Remember when we said that entire island of Gorne is devoid of fauna? Through dialogue with Silene, we will find out that his family used to hunt here for generations, and apparently they did such a good job that they kill off every single animal. Thus, Silene is forced to change a profession. Now, Delamus' family used to fish here for generations, and he kinda feels like no one else has the right to fish around here. And this is where Staff of Drorim comes into play. The history of Staff is loosely tied with the history of Gorne. It was crafted by Gallus Drorim, the first and greatest fisherman of Gorne. It's not mentioned, but if it's true, then this staff has to be several thousands of years old, since Gorne has a very long history. And according to Silent, Delamus is only acting like this because his family are newcomers, and only thing connecting them to the Gorne Sea is the staff. You see, staff is something of a status symbol. Whoever owns it owns the waters around the island. However, staff disappeared together with Delamus's brother in a storm over 10 years ago, while fishing near island's eastern coast. Before we dive in and search for the missing staff, it's interesting to know that Silent will in fact be much friendlier towards the player. Delamus will not only act all hysterical and overly aggressive, but even threaten to take the staff from our hands if we ever find it. So finding the staff naturally won't be easy. In my opinion, best way is to first locate this boat on the eastern side of the island. And this boat marks the location of another shipwreck called Looted Shipwreck. We can of course check this shipwreck as well. There will be a couple of drowned salvagers and random items floating around. However, inside the lower level, hiding behind a crate is a small chest containing a bunch of gemstones, including a diamond. Chest is locked behind a level 45 lock, so be ready for some underwater lockpicking. In any case, to find our shipwreck, we need to swim straight north from the looted shipwreck. Also nearby, I found a random guar casually walking on the ocean's floor. I was hoping it to be some secret, unique aquatic guar or something like that, but it's probably just a glitch. With that said, if we follow the line straight north, we will eventually discover the second shipwreck with the body of an unfortunate fisherman who died 10 years ago and the staff of Drorim laying next to him. Staff actually has a decent enchantment of 20 seconds of water walking per strike, but again, I think that item's biggest value is in its history and being the status symbol. We now have an option to keep the staff or give it to either Silent or Delamus. Remembering how they treated me, I decided to give the staff to Silent, which immediately enraged Delamus to the point of attacking him right there. Silent will of course defend himself and eventually kill Delamus, although he wouldn't be happy about it. Judging from the whole story, it's obvious that Silent is more reasonable and a sane one. In fact, he will reward us with 350 septims that he saved in case he had to leave the island, making him the only one to actually give us any valuable reward. And in case you wonder, if we give the staff to Delamus, he will give us some rotten fish. And that's it. Not a very grateful guy. And this concludes 2 questlines that I encountered on Gorne. Both are quite short, involve lots of diving and won't offer plenty of rewards, but they are interesting in their own way. I always enjoy a good piece of story writing, and these 2 quests help me understand the locals and their customs much better. With that said, let's see what else we can find on the island. As for the town of Gorne, we already mentioned the Emerald Haven Inn as the, not surprisingly, only inn. There is a local trader, Metallus Evis, a wood elf burial offering plenty of alchemical ingredients. However, one of the most interesting findings were right here. This is a home of Velo Valaro, a seemingly ordinary Dunmer who likes to keep to himself and stay indoors. Except that if we ask him about his background, he will quite openly say that he is in fact a smuggler. Wow, what an honest Dunmer. And I guess that explains his expensive clothing. But the question remains, what is he exactly smuggling? To find out, we must first open the level 55 lock and enter the storage. There we will find another lock, this one being much stronger, level 95, hiding under some crates. Opening this trapdoor reveals a secret underground area with a couple of crates and a barrel. And what can be found inside? Besides some standard smuggling items such as moon sugar and cyrodiilic brandy, there are 4 ash statues. So it seems that the 6th house reached even this remote island on the far east of Morrowind. Question remains, is Velo Valaro himself a 6th house follower, or only used to smuggle these statues? Sandil Manor, as previously mentioned, is located next to the temple on a hill. It's a retirement home to Ranelid Sandil, a 3 centuries old Indoril noble and basically a ruler of Gorne. Manor is large and has plenty of random, more or less valuable items laying around. But for me, most interesting were some of the books that can be found around the house. First of all, there are 2 books from Vivek's 36 Lesson series, Sermon 8 and 17. But there are also a handful of new books added by Tamriel Rebuilt. Now, I find those very interesting because, first of all, they are very well written and fun to read, and secondly, they provide lots of lore, and lore is always good. My favorites are Her Hand, detailing a story when a single Her Hand killed 6 High Ordinators accused of blasphemy. This in itself shows just how powerful are Amalexia's personal bodyguards. Or a book called Formalities of Mirth, which concerns laughter from a Dunmer point of view. In short, it talks how Indoril should never laugh in public. It's really fun. And there's also a book, A History of Amalexia, which is, you guessed it, about the history of Morrowind's capital, hero of Indoril, basically plenty of books expanding on Indoril lore. As we all know, House Indoril isn't present in a vanilla game, and they always were quite interesting to me, so again, I really enjoy all this literature that adds to their lore. None of these books feel different from the rest of vanilla game. They are all carefully written respecting the original lore. And last but not least, Sandil Manor contains perhaps the most valuable treasure on the entire island. Not one, but 2 statues of toy guars. And speaking of Sandil family, as rulers of Gorne, it's only fitting that their ancestral tomb is located on the island as well. It can be found on the central eastern part of the island, and it's quite large and heavily guarded by the undead. Considering that there isn't much loot in there, I'd say it's not worth the trouble, but here are some of the items and enemies I found within. Behind the lock level 38, there's a room containing native Kuzei bone mold cuirass, if anyone cares about it. I think it's valuable for collectors of rare or unique armors, as I think that vanilla game only has native Kuzei helm, and it's paired with a sweet looking steel longsword and a book, The Force Homily, which has a weird anonymous story of a hungry Nyx hound. Now take in consideration that this room alone is guarded by a greater skeleton champion, a single strongest skeleton variant with a health pool of 300. And for collectors, there's also vintage brandy, quite rare and expensive item costing 500 drakes. And it's also heavily guarded, including a greater bonewalker standing right next to it. Nearby are also a single topaz, worth 150 septims, and devil tanto, enchanted short blade offering a minor fire shield and bound dagger for a whole 1 minute. Not bad, but again, nothing epic. In the deepest corners of the tomb, beneath the skulls on spikes, are raw crystal, used for alchemical purposes, and jet, another alchemical ingredient apparently used for summoning Dremora. Again, this is all I managed to find in this tomb. Maybe I missed something, but in my opinion, only a higher leveled experienced characters should even consider going in, for the sake of clearing all dungeons. Vissamu is a cave found in the northern part of the island, with the entrance almost hidden behind a single mushroom tree. This is in fact the only cave on Gorne, and seems to belong to a 6th house, or at least used to in the past. It contains a large ruined chamber with 2 well-hidden items, an ash statue and a Daggett dagger, with some typical minor absorb fatigue enchantments. Counting the 4 ash statues found in Smuggler's secret basement, there are in total 5 of them on Gorne. And all the burning red candles found throughout the cave made me wonder if the 6th house cult has a presence on Gorne. Or perhaps diseased rats found all over the place are, in fact, 6th house cultists. Further down the cave is a hunting site of a large number of remains laying across the floor. There is an ancient tome found next to the body, describing the last days of a member of House Dagot and her family. In other words, it describes the earliest days of tribunal and persecution of the remaining members of House Dagot. It's a chilling story, offering some clues to the island's most distant past and its potential connection to the House Dagot. Text reads, Lord Vorin Dagot has been slain beneath Red Mountain. The song changes each day. The ancestors warned us to leave, but we did not listen. I only pray that House Dagot will stand immortal, as all 7 as one houses of the Chimer have stood since Velet. Followers of the false gods came to our home, took our slaves for their own, and ordered us to gather our things. My son refused to leave and took his father's sword from the wall and tried to fend them off. But there were so many of them, they killed him, though he was only a boy. Several of the wicked men then desecrated the tombs of my family. They decapitated the body of my elderly father, Dagot Morrowind. He had once been one of the Vorin Dagots, Chapped Hill. We were forced onto barges which sailed for the Mournhold from the temple city of Ashur-Nibibi. My daughter Namora has grown very sick. I fear for her. Namora passed before we reached here. They stole her body from my arms and cast her into the sea. I was ordered to drag our family chest to the deck of the ship, but the mournhole was not in sight. Instead, they huddled us in this cave and divided the woman from the man. Neither my daughter Urshra, last of my children, nor I could sleep all night. I could hear our men screaming, calling out Vorin's name. The followers of the three devils were torturing the last man of House Dagot. The song was failing. A man of House Indril came and ordered us to hand over our jewelry and any belongings with the seal of our house. He then ordered his troops to pull the younger children away from us, as they wailed and cried out. He said they would become members of one of the surviving houses, while the rest of us would die as Dagots. My daughter Ushra was one of the children taken away to join another house. She is all that is left of our family, and she will live. The rest of us will die here today. May Resdain one day regret its wickedness. So it seems that all these remains belong to the members of House Dagot, murdered by House Indril in the name of Tribunal, and it looks like they were all brought specifically to Vissamu before killing. This cave could have been related to House Dagot since the earliest days, or at least that's my impression. In any case, the note successfully depicts all the chaos, confusion and bloodshed during the days of Tribunal's rise to power, while giving us a rare insight into the House Dagot and its side of the story. And this one is really random. At the very top of the island's cliff lies a hidden chest with a unique enchanted item. This is Explorer's Belt, with a constant effect of Fortify Athletics and Acrobatics on self for a whopping 10 points. It's not clear who actually left it there and for what purpose, but it's free for taking, and again, another valuable addition to players' collection of unique items. If nothing, it makes running and jumping around somewhat easier. And now it's time to finally visit the Rendays Manor. It's a home to Belamus Rendays, a wealthy retired merchant, and his daughter Madeline. If you guys remember, Madeline is the one responsible for bringing Burial, the wood elf alchemist obsessed with flowers, from Akamora to Gorne. Now, as we walk through the town, it's hard not to notice that Gorne is basically a flower garden, and as we read in Dead Guard's journal, some people are really disliking it. Now, what's interesting is that if we attempt to speak to Madeline, she will act very rude, like even for a Dunmer, and if we manage to let her talk, she will say that her family controlled the trade on this island for generations, and that she made significant expansions. And that's pretty much it. She won't say anything else and just avoid any further discussion. Looking around the manor, we may find a couple of interesting things. First of all, her bed is covered with flowers, for some unknown reason. I think that she's really into flowers, which is again why she brought Burial all the way here. And she didn't just brought her to Gorne. You see, talking to Burial will reveal that Madeline is her patron and even provides her residence in exchange for her floral expertise. In other words, Burial gets to live on the island and have her own shop, which I have to say looks rather expensive, completely free, as long as she does her flowery things. I guess this is what Madeline meant by expanding family business, but still, it's such a strange thing. Burial and Madeline will keep complimenting each other, and again, according to Dead Guard's journal, they will also act all arrogant towards others. It almost made me think that there is something more going on between two of them, but I'm not really sure. I mean, they could be really just very into flowers. In any case, Manor has several potions of Fortify personality laying around, as well as Telvanni Bug Mask, which is also used to boost one's personality or charm. They are most likely brewed by Burial, who is an alchemist by profession, but again, I wonder for what exact purpose. Well, Madeline's father, Belamus, living upstairs, will apologize for his daughter's rude behavior, calling her a bit rough around the edges and not knowing how to exactly talk to people. So my impression is that all these Fortify personality potions are meant for Madeline, due to her, well, lack of personality. All in all, this is not so much of a secret, but it's a really interesting situation. I call it the flower conspiracy, and I just want to point it out. Oh, and there's also a copy of Sermon 2, if anyone cares. And with that, we came to an end of another Tamriel Rebuilt video. It was really fun exploring around the island. It's one of my favorite places in the game, with so much history and lore. As I walked around, I even had an idea for another quest. Since the island is devoid of fauna, I thought it would be fun to have a chance to reintroduce some of the animals. Perhaps bringing a couple of guars or something like that. It's just an idea. And with that said, I hope you guys enjoyed the overview of Gorne, and I'll see you again next time.